What's going on YouTube? Cloverbells here, back with another Scarlet Violet video, and today we're going to be looking at the Victory Road November challenge that took place the previous weekend. So this is a Regulation F tour from Victory Road, and it was going on at the same time that Las Vegas Regionals was happening, so a lot of the players were still focused on Regulation H, and they still will be, because again we still have Stuttgart coming up, right? But at the very least, for the people that stayed home, you could have played in this tournament here. And again, this is still part of your preparing for the early format for the second go round of Regulation F. So there hasn't really been coverage on this tournament just yet, but I would imagine once people are finally done with Reg H, they're going to come back to this and say, you know what, this happened 2 weeks ago. Let me see what was going on here. So we're going to get a leg up on this, and we're going to preview a lot of the things that you're going to be seeing in the early format, especially at the tournament level. And we'll look at some of the key cores that you're going to be, trying to build around, or at least trying to plant against, right? Because again, there's still time before the official format begins. But as always, we're going to try and help you out, especially if you're a newer player. So 142 players, not particularly, huge, but still large enough where you can really make something out of this. Normally these VR tours have around like 200 plus players. But of course, a lot of the attention was on Vegas. So those players didn't even play in this, but if they do have a December challenge, which I would imagine they would, then you'll probably going to see a larger turnout here. So as always, we're going to take a look at usage rates. We're going to take a look at the key cores as always, and try and make something out of it moving forward. So this way you can prepare yourself, for Regulation F when it actually goes live. All right, so let's take a look at the data. All right, so here we are. We have the usage stats graphics, and again, thanks to Victory Road for posting that. But a lot of this stuff isn't out of the ordinary. So right here, you can see Urshifu Rapid Strike at number 1, Flutter Mane, Incineroar, and Raging Bolt at numbers 2, 3, and 4. And that's probably going to be the case with the early format as well, because again, Flutter Mane back in the meta, dominant fairy type that you really didn't have in Regulation H unless you were trying to make use of the Ninetales. But now all of a sudden, Flutter Mane is back. And a ton of pressure can come out from it. It's super fast. You have the booster energy to make it faster. Choice specs now is an option where you can actually do even more damage, but still go for a bulkier build, because again, there's no legendaries, right? Well, as far as like the box legendaries back in like Regulation G, so you can get away with bulk, right? Because you're not just going to get nuked by a Calyrex, right? So you just need enough to survive stuff like a sucker punch from a Chien-Pao, for example, right? Then Incineroar is just going to be doing Incineroar things, again mitigating damage, pivoting in and out off the board, being super annoying with the fake out cycling and whatnot. Of course, this is what it's supposed to do. Raging Bolt, all right, of course, this is the mascot almost for Regulation F, right? Along with Flutter Mane and Ursh, because again, Calm Mind Raging Bolt with a bunch of redirection and fake out pressure is just very hard to break. And Priority Thunderclap doesn't make it any easier, right? Then you have the genies that are back in the meta, right? Landorus Incarnate, and then of course Tornadus. So access to Rain Dance from Tornadus, Priority, Tailwind. Then you have Sunny Day ideas where you can enable Flutter Mane and Chi-Yu on your teams, of course. Then you got Landorus, which is 1 point faster than the base 100, so you can outspeed stuff like a Chi-Yu, stuff like an Entei. And then you are a ground type, so that means you can put pressure on Raging Bolt and Incineroar, and there's the value behind it. And then you have substitute access, which means you have some way to get around the Trick Room ideas, because you can always just alternate your substitutes and protects. Then, of course, the grass types here, Amoonguss, Rillaboom, and then you're going to see the Ogerpons as well, right, which are coming up shortly. But again, Amoonguss still very good in this format. Again, Redirector gives you a Trick Room matchup. Rillaboom gives you terrain control, obviously. Another fake out mon to use with your Raging Bolt. Again, leftovers, Calm Mind Raging Bolt with grassy terrain. All right, very, very valuable. You see what this thing can do in Regulation H with like the Volcarona stuff, where it just stays on the field and it keeps getting recovery over time. Then you have the more physical aggressions here, again, with Chien-Pao, Ogerpon, and the other Ogerpon, of course. So the Heart Flame, and the Wellspring, they'll be flip-flopping, I would imagine, back and forth, as the format progresses. It just really depends on the user, but they're both very valuable. Heart Flame will deal more damage, of course. Wellspring is more of the, the Urshifu Rapid Strike matchup, right? That's why you're going to see it on a lot of teams. And then because you have Fire Grass in one Pokemon, or even Water Grass in another, it just gives you easier access to a Fire, Water, Grass core. So you could easily just see Heartflame Mass Ogerpon with Urshifu, and there's your Fire, Water, Grass core. And then over here, you can also see Ogerpon Wellspring, and then you can just add some fire type like Instant or Entei or Chi-Yu, for example, and then there you go, Fire, Water, Grass core. Farigiraf and the Ursalunas, they're going to be very, very good again, obviously. Now, the Single Strike may not get as much high usage as the Rapid Strike, but it is still very, very valuable because, again, you know, Unseen Fist, Wicked Blow still is going to hurt like a ton of damage, right? You partner this with Chien-Pao, going to do you even more damage. Same thing with the Ogerpons, right? They're going to do a ton more damage when they have the Chien-Pao next to it. And then at the same time, you can punch the Indeedis, you can punch the Iron Crowns, the other Ursalunas, the Porygons, right? That they're, you know, the Goldengos, they're not nearly the dominant threats that they were, you know, in Regulation H, but they are still very, very good threats, right? Because again, you can still see Porygon and Goldengo within the top 20 usage here. And then of course, Iron Crown size spam, like we mentioned, that you're gonna see that with Tornadus, Indeedee, and probably the Regidragos, you know, just like, you know, click these melt buttons and then just, you know, make these games go quickly, right? Gouging Fire, we did a team building around that, right? Where you have the Howl boost, where you can enable a lot of these physical attackers. You got Breaking Strike Pressure for neutering damage, and then you can also use Heat Crash to one-shot stuff like Flutter Mane. Dragon Fire typing is really good because, again, Surging Strikes is neutral to you, as is the Fairy type attacks from a Flutter Mane, for example. And then Dragonite, different kind of set that you'll see a little bit more in Regulation F, because again, now that you have Chien-Pao back, you're going to see a lot of those Choice Band Extreme Speed Dragonites, or like, again, those Choice Band Inner Focus Dragonites. You're not really going to see as much Scale Shot, you know, as you saw in Regulation H, but I guarantee you, now that you have Chien-Pao, you will probably see some try it, just because now the Scale Shot is doing more damage, and now you're able to pick up KOs, where even if you go for the 4 hits instead of the 5, it'll still be enough to pick up those KOs. So I would imagine that is something that will be explored, you know, when people are finally done with Reg H and want to start trying to play Regulation F here. But again, the Porygon Ursaluna balance stuff, that's still available. You'll probably see Flutter Mane come onto those team comps, right? You're still going to see like Instant Amoonguss, P2 Ursaluna. Now these last 2 slots are up for grabs there. So yeah, I would imagine those variants are not really going to change a whole lot here. Now, if you see the Phase 1, Phase 2 conversion stuff, so again, you see the consistency with the Urshifu, Flutter Mane, and Incineroar. That, again, that's not going to change there. Raging Bolt there did have a bit of a drop there in Phase 2, you know, just about under 30%, but it's still, again, very, very high usage. Look at Tornadus, again, still also very, very consistent. Same thing with Amoonguss, right? In fact, it even rose up a little bit more in Phase 2 because, again, Redirector is really important against like these priority shenanigans here. Landorus is still strong here. Rillaboom down to 10%. That was a little surprising, but you know, with something like Chien-Pao and the Ogerpons back in the format, I could imagine, you know, people opting for, you know, a different grass type to have on the team, or maybe just if the fire type from Incineroar is enough fake out here. And then after that, look at this. Single Strike Urshifu actually increased a ton, right? Look at that, 14% all the way up to 24% in Phase 2. So that's something to make note of. So again, you can kind of throw this into the pile there. Farigiraf, again, also very solid, like again with the Blood Moon Ursalunas, and just in general with so much priority and fake out pressure, that Farigiraf just has so much value in this format, even more than the previous one, right? Ogerpon Wellspring, same thing, like very consistent conversion from Phase 1, Phase 2, super valuable. You know, as long as Urshifu Rapid Strike is super meta, then the Wellspring Ogerpon will also be relatively super meta, right? So yeah, other things to note, like again, P2 Goldengo stuff, like look at this, right? 7.7% in Phase 1, then all of a sudden rising up to 19% in Day 2. So again, they can still be a threat, right? Like Goldengo, you know, just because, yes, I understand there's Ogerpon back in the meta, Chien-Pao back in the meta, Chi-Yu back in the meta, Urshifu, Flutter Mane back in the meta, okay? Those are very, very bad things for a Goldengo. But if you have enough support, Goldengo can still get the job done. It may be a bit of a Terra Hog a little bit more now, but at the same time, it's still very good. Make It Rain is strong, okay? Shadow Ball is strong, okay? So that's something to still be making a note of. And in P2, the bulk is still very valuable, right? So, you know, stuff like Trick Room and Ice Beam coverage, especially against like Landorus, Tornadus, Raging Bolt, you know, Amoonguss, Rillaboom stuff, like ice coverage is going to be important. So like Ice Beam P2 with, you know, a download boost is still going to be very, very solid So yeah, there's definitely still some teams that can definitely make use of that. And we even put out one of those teams in one of our videos a little bit earlier, like either last week or the week before. But anyway, this is what your early mons are going to look like for Reg F. So now let's look at the team corners and let's see how these were used on particular teams. All right, so now we're going to take a look at top cut results here. So 1 through 9. And it was a Calm Mind Raging Bolt that was able to take it from Stefano Greppi. So let's take a look at the squad here. And it is exactly as you would expect, right? So here's the centerpiece, Raging Bolt, leftovers, Calm Mind, Protect, of course, double fake out mods with Incineroar and Rillaboom. Of course, you want to be able to give yourself that space to be able to set up said Calm Mind. And then how about Ogerpons here with Swords Dance? So you can also go for this plan B more or less, or technically this could be the plan A and this is the plan B, where you can set up the Ogerpons Hard Flame and start going for these hard-hitting Ivy Cudgels as well as these priority Grassy Glides. Can you imagine, right? Like +2 Grassy Glides in the grassy terrain, right? That's like insane damage, okay? And then of course you've got the Scarf Urshifu, which is able to outspeed a lot of the meta already, and then substitute Landorus again with the sub. You're able to play the game a little bit better in the Trick Room idea, right? And then of course you can always use your fake outs in the Trick Room matchup as well, where you can just pivot out one slot and then just keep alternating these fake outs, Protect on the other side, and then before you know it, the Trick Room is gone. So this is going to be one of the teams to beat, or like one of the ideas to beat. Again, Raging Bolt plus this redirection support, or even with the double fake out pressure. Now again, there's no redirection here. This is meant to be like an offensive or Heart Flame here, but again, it still makes sense. Also note the tech here, the Ice Spinner on the Urshifu Rapid Strike. Again, that's meant to be able to blow up terrain, so you can remove Indeedee terrains, right? So you can always click your priority Thunderclaps and your fake out pressures and whatnot. So that's also important as well to note. But moving on, here we go. There's the P2 balance idea here. Okay, but note that it is a Terra Flying P2, right? As opposed to like Terra Fighting. Again, but the flying does a few things. One, it's really good against the Ogerpons running around, Rillabooms and Amoonguses, okay? And then two, you give yourself some synergy with the Ursaluna since you can Earthquake next to it, right? Scarf Urshifu yet again. Now you have sub Flutter Mane here, right? Moonblast, Shadow Ball, so your 2 stab moves. No Dazzling Gleam needed here. You do have Protect, and then Instant Amoongus for your defensive backbone. Also note the Sludge Bomb tech over here. Again, poison damage is also really solid against the Ogerpons because again, they are the grass type there. So that's also pretty good. It's pretty good also against Rillabooms, which you might want to bring into something like this because again, you got the Ursaluna and Urshifu here, weak to the Rillabooms. So, something like this where you can pressure it a little bit better with the Sludge Bomb as well as like the Flare Blitz from the instant here. That also makes sense at the same time. Okay. Oh, by the way, Terra Flying is also really good. Terra Blast, Terra Flying, really good against Urshifus as well. All right, now here we got the Tinglu Dondozo idea. So we've actually put out this team, in the previous video with Gouging Fire here. Again, this is like one of the returning teams from the first go around of Regulation F. So if you want to try something like this out, check out our previous video with Gouging Fire. This is one of the pastes that we linked there. But again, Sand Tomb here with the Yawn Pressure from Dozo is very, very annoying. Gouging Fire, with Howl, is strong with Dragonite and Chien-Pao. And again, look at this, like we said earlier, the Scale Shot D-Knight with the Chien-Pao experimentation will be on the board here for Regulation F when it does return. So just be on the lookout for that. Specs Goldango, again, still very, very strong. Hits very, very hard. And once things have taken a ton of chip damage from like Sand Tomb and Yawn stuff, then just Make It Rain is able to clean things up. Okay, then we've got, again, more Raging Bolt balance, but this is the AV set idea, right? Where you have the Ogerpons Wellspring and the Landorus here, Lando Flutter here. Again, Icy Wind and Taunt. Taunt is really strong at shutting down Calm Mind, so that's also really nice. And then the Single Strike Urshifu for just good breaker damage altogether. And then the Choice Band, Terra Normal, Extreme Speed Entei is also pretty good. Flare Blitz, strong fire type damage, right? Stomping Tantrum, good ground tech to hit fire types, as well as like another Raging Bolt. So I do like this idea as well. So if you want to play Raging Bolt like that, you can definitely do that. Then you'll probably see people keep trying the Articuno team that did very well the first go around. Again, very, somewhat reliant on the Ninetales Snow idea, but then you got these other pieces here that are also really solid, right? The Snarls, the Ogerpons, the Landorus here, the aggressive fire type with the Banded Arcanine yet again. So you don't always have to, bring and force yourself to use the Articuno. You can always just use these other pieces, which are relatively solid too. Okay, then we have the mix of Tailwind and Trick Room. So if you look at the bottom of our screen, you notice how we have the Tornadus and the Fergraph there. So this is also piggybacking off of that idea, but their slow mode is utilizing the Raging Bolt, I would imagine, instead of something like the Ursaluna that we got here. And then you have double fire type with Chi-Yu and Entei. You don't normally see that. Usually you have one over the other, and then the other is usually some kind of Ogerpon here. But in this essence, we have the double fire type. This is AV Entei instead. So, 3 of these teams have Entei. Again, inner focus is strong, right? You can't fake it out and you can't intimidate it. So it's really good against the Incin Arcanine stuff, especially when you have stuff like Stone Edge and Stomping Tantrum to hit the Incineroar, right? And then you pressure the Rillabooms with Sacred Fire. So all of a sudden, Entei looking really good against that kind of duo here. And then, Chi-Yu, Flutter Mane, Tornadus, again, the essence of hyper offense. Like, if you want to build a hyper offensive team, just start with these 3 and then just add the supporting pieces after that. Life Orb, Raging Bolt, also very, very strong with Terra Electric. Again, Thunderbolt, Thunderclaps, very strong. And then look at this Sunny Day, right? That not only enables the Flutter Mane and the Chi-Yu and the Entei, that also enables the Raging Bolt, because again, Photosynthesis is Raging Bolt's ability. So you can even have this do more damage with Life Orb, with Terra Electric. This thing is going to one-shot a lot of Pokemon there. So yeah, good job there from Matthew. Then we have number 7 here from Gothier Planet. So this is like your traditional hyper offense from the first go around of Reg F, right? Again, Tornadus, Flutter Mane, Chi-Yu. Then you add the Wellspring Ogerpon there. There's your Fire Water Grass Core. Then you add Glomora here, right? With Meteor Beam, Sludge Bomb, Earth Power. Like Terra Grass with Glomora is good, for the Urshifu stuff. All right, it's also great for the ground weakness. Meteor Beam is strong into Incin, right? Then Sludge Bomb good into the Ogres, and then Earth Power good against Raging Bolt, for example. So Glomora is actually quite useful in this format. All right, and then of course, like we said, Single Strike Urshifu, great into Ferrographs and Indeedee, by the way. Then you have Oliver's team here. This is like one of the niche Raging Bolt, the niche Roaring Moon balance teams here that we've seen before. Like Okidogi can kind of fill that guard dog role against anti-intimidate stuff. Again, AV Okidogi behind screens, very hard to break, also does a lot of damage. Gunk Shot, Drain Punch, high horsepower, upper hand, great move set there. Again, upper hand, great for the priority stuff. Gunk Shot, strong poison damage into the Ogerpons. Drain Punch for Incin. High horsepower also, for something like a Raging Bolt. And then Tailwind from Roaring Moon, good support with Grimmsnarl screens. And then Heatran with Sub. Okay, don't forget, Heatran has a great niche in this meta. Very, very good against Flutter Mane and Chi-Yu, right? Because again, you can't really use your fire type attacks. You're going to resist the fairy type attacks, and then you have Earth Power for the Chi-Yu. So, Heatran, one of those niche options that's really nice against Flutter Mane and Chi-Yu ideas. And then Banded Iron Boulder, again, a niche Pokemon here, can still work. Mighty Cleave, again, just think Urshifu, just go through the protect stuff. Zen Headbutt, also nice against the fighting types in general. Close Combat Rock Blast here, again, just coverage move altogether. But again, it's another fast aggressive option. Then we have this one here, again, like Incin Amoonguss Raging Bolt here. Yeah, again, just like AV Bolt stuff. Again, just Raging Bolt balance ideas, like very standard Raging Bolt team here. So again, honestly, look how many teams have Raging Bolt. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the 9 teams have Raging Bolt, right? And that goes to say, and then look how many Ogerpon Wellsprings here. You got 4 Ogerpon Wellsprings, right? A couple of Chi-Yus here, a lot of Urshifu, right? And this is the epitome of Regulation F. So just be ready of these, right? So Bolts, the Ogerpons, the Urshifus, and the Incin / Chi-Yu stuff here with Flutter Mane. Like, again, look at Flutter Mane here, right? How many of them? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Flutter Manes, right? So this is the format, right? And even though it was like a smaller VR tour, this you're gonna see a lot of these comps. But what I also want to see is like some of these other teams that went like, day 2, 7-3 results, 6-4s are also pretty good. So let's take a look at these as well. All right, Mason Cutler here, Chessboard, who we've had on the channel before in the past as a special guest. You know, that makes, you know, with the new stuff that they're doing with ladder and whatever and the in-person tournaments, I haven't been able to restart up my collaboration series. So, you know, that kind of hurts me a little bit, but that's a discussion for another day. But let's look at what Mason was using here. So he's got Whimsicott stuff. Again, Whimsicott, you know, Urshifu, Fergraph. We've seen these options before. How about the Defined Ogerpon getting some play from Mason here, right? Superpower, you know, Defied, really good against Instant, right? If you get a boost there, then now all of a sudden you can one-shot it. AV Instant here with U-Turn. It's called Mind Primarina. This is interesting. Throat Spray, Aggressive Fergraph, again, will be a play in this format. Then Bandit Urshifu. We have King's Rock Fling, Terra Rock Whimsicott. I'm not sure what we're trying to do here, but it's pretty funny when you think about it. Maybe Mason can explain that to us there. Hey, here's one of the hyper offense teams with Goldengo here, like Tornadus and Landorus here, but the double genie idea. So like Tailwind Earthquake is going to be one of the things you can do with something like this, right? Where you just deal a ton of damage already. Then you can also go for U-turn for pivots, right? And then if things have taken a ton of damage, you know, with the Earthquake, then you can just always clean up with a Sash Urshifu, or like Specs Goldengo, for example, right? Like, let's say you click Tailwind, Earthquake, you ignored the landers, you kill this. Now, all of a sudden, you're at the mercy of Make It Rain Earthquake, right? But, of course, that would hit your own Goldengo. But anyway, it's just something to consider when you think about it. You can even, like, go Terra Flying here, if anything, right? Mousehold is still going to be good in this format, right? Frangard is still very much appreciated. And then, you know, Icy Wind, Taunt, Flutter Mane, strong. Again, just grabbing speed control into the mirror matchup. Taunt for shutting down Calm Minds, right? So you'll see a lot of that. Then we have this idea, this almost, yeah, like we saw something like this from, I think Wolf used this once, right? With the Instant Among Us double genies. Did they have a Flutter Mane in this slot here? I think they did, right? And then, but in this case, we have Goldengo here. So this still works, right? So again, like Tornadus Ursh, right? Rain Dance ideas with Urshifu, that's going to be a play. And then that works also with Landers here, right? Because again, you can also go for Sanseer Storm, but they opted to go for Substitute, right? You know, maybe just a little bit more security in the Tricker matchup with the Among Us, right? Trick, Choice Specs, Goldengo is still a thing, and then Safety Goggles is. And I like this kind of team. I think it's pretty good. I think Flutter Mane also works out here in this slot. It really just depends on what you want, but I think that kind of 6 makes a lot of sense. Is this Balance Raging Bolt again, or is this AV? It is Calm Mind Raging Bolts. So again, this is what we were saying: the fake outs, the redirector here, and then the Flutter Mane here. Now, okay, this is actually the second variant where the Follow Me is dropped, but instead opting for the ground coverage, which I would assume is for something like an instant, because your fire and your grass moves does do nothing to it, right? So the Stomping Tantrum is appreciated, along with, again, having the ground coverage into the Raging Bolts and stuff, right? So I guess this is all you need here. Then, how about Kamo P2 ideas? I've seen this before in the first go around of Reg F, I mean. This is the IDBP combo. Yep, Instant Among Us, Specs Goldengo. Ting Lu here. Again, AV Ting Lu is going to be strong against like a lot of these special attackers, especially Raging Bolt. Bolt can't really hit it all that well, right? You have the Stomping Tantrum move, right? And then at the same time, you know, Throat Chop is very useful, you know, against like the sound stuff. Terra Blast, Terra Fairy is also quite interesting there. So that's also pretty cool. Yeah, this is again another idea with the Instant P2 stuff. Look at this, right? Like Instant Among Us, P2 or Saluna. There's your Trick Room core. Then you got this fast mode here with Tornadus Urshifu, right? So again, this is also another idea that you could do with P2 balance, where now you just have this fast mode with this slow mode, and then just like Regulation H, the Ursaluna had some speed investment, right? And then you still have this flying type on your team where you can Earthquake next to it. Remember, in this slot, you had like Kilowattrels, Hydragons, Dragonites, for example. These are all things that synergize with Ursaluna, with the Earthquake idea, and now we see it yet again with Tornadus. So, yeah, again, this makes a lot of sense. And then you get Weather Control with Rain Dance, which is very useful against the sun stuff for photosynthesis. So all in all, yeah, that's also another idea you can explore. This one kind of also looks like the team that we have at the bottom here, but they have an AV Basque Legion there with adaptability. So I guess there's a little bit more experimentation here. But again, you have, oh no, you don't have Rain Dance. I was just gonna say, like, where's the Rain Dance? But there is none. We have Taunt instead. And then this is Booster Energy Flutter Mane here. Yeah, and then just look like Furograph, or Iron Hands here. You could even fit in Ursaluna technically if they wanted to, but Clear Amulet Iron Hands is still a thing, right? Like, again, Ice Punch really strong into Landorus and Dragonites and all the genies and whatever. Wild Charge is strong into Ursh, strong into Flutter Mane, right? And then even this one, Terra Poison Urshifu for the Flutter Fairy Resist. Rock Slide is a tech, okay? And then what is this? Yeah, this is pretty standard here, as if it was banned, but instead we have the AV here. That's probably for Shadow Ball Flutter Mane, right? I would imagine. So that's my anticipation there. Okay, what about like the Dondozo stuff here? So yeah, this is something I expect to, like Dondozo Tatsugiri, Flutter Mane, Glamora, no Tailwind support idea, but instead we're going with Chien-Pao Ante here, which is again also pretty standard. So this is like 2-2-2 almost, right? A 2-2-2 format kind of team here where you have 3 pairs of Pokemon here. I just wish there was some Tailwind here, but I guess they didn't feel the need for it. Sneasler is almost non-existent in this format, right? So again, there's the Tailwind idea that I was talking about. So Roy Moon giving Tailwind, right, with Glamora here, but instead we have Indeedee Sneasler, again, piggybacking off of the 2-2-2 pairing. I don't know how good Sneasler is going to be this format. I think it just gets outclassed by a lot of these Paradox Mons and Legendaries coming back. So we'll have to see if there will be some experimentation, but at least it does get something done over here. The rain teams are going to be interesting as well. So now that you have Urshifu back, so you might even just replace your Basque Legion with this. So yes, you've got Pelipper, Archelodon, and then you got something like Chien-Pao Amoonguss over here. But like Chien-Pao Urshifu also makes sense. How about the tech here with Life Orb Scissor? So instead of going for something like Instant or Flutter Mane, for example, we're going with Life Orb Scissor. And Bullet Punch is strong. This is one of the selling points of trying to make Metagross work in Reg F, is that you do get Bullet Punch, and that hurts the Flutter Mane a lot, okay? And then you add, these other moves, right? Pounce and Close Combat there. Now, like, Scissor in the Rain is strong because your only weakness is Fire, but now you're taking that away when you have the Rain. So now all of a sudden, Scissor becomes a pretty decent aggressive option here. But like I said, you'll probably see these Archelodon Rain teams start dropping the Basque Legion up for the Urshifu instead. And then you just add Chien-Pao here with the Mungus. So now you got some stability here. You might even see something like Landorus on some of these teams as well. But Instant just also adds stability here if you want to like maybe replace this. But I think Scizor is a pretty cool tech to consider here in a tour like this. But definitely look out for these 5. Okay. And here's another one, right? Look at Arizabeth trying something here. So the Sinisha, instead of Ursaluna, we're going for Choice Band Tinglu. A little bit more of an aggressive option here. Right, and then you're adding Chien-Pao Urshifu again. So look at this. This is exactly what we were saying. Pelipper, Archelodon, right? Urshifu, Chien-Pao, and then instead of Amoonguss, we got Sinistra, and now we have an aggressive ground type in Tinglu instead of the Ursaluna. Can Ursaluna work? Absolutely. I think it can. I think they're just trying to, look at different options while it's still like super early in this format. This is something worth trying, right? Because again, they want the damage just like Ursaluna, but they also want the mitigation effect of the Vessel of Ruin here, I would imagine, right? And the Dark typing is also pretty good. But we'll have to wait and see. Heavy Slam is a great tech to have against Flutter Mane, of course. And then, of course, you also have Earthquake that you can click next to something like a Pelipper, for example. But I don't know. Maybe we'd have to like reformat this a little bit. Maybe even try out the Ursaluna. But I'm not going to fault Arizabeth for trying this. I think it does make some sense to explore with it. Here we go. This is the other thing that we were speaking about. Again, here's the Flutter Mane in that slot over there, like Instant, Amoonguss, P2, Ursaluna. Now you add Tornadus Ursh, or in this case, you can even add substitute Flutter Mane. This works out too. I like the Tornadus variant a little bit more, but that's just me, okay? So all in all, let's kind of summarize everything that we've seen here. So this way, we have some takeaways. All right, so again, smaller VR tour, but at least it gives you a sense of, what can and will work, at least for the early portion of the format when it does return. So Tornadus hyper offense will be a thing, right, with Urshifu. And then the Ogerpons are also going to be strong. Like, again, look for fire, water, grass cores that you could explore with the Ogerpons. Chien-Pao Urshifu is going to be a threat. Raging Bolts, whether it be like Calm Mind stuff or even like Assault Vest Raging Bolt, that's going to be good altogether. P2 balance is still going to be a thing, right? You're just literally keeping the same 4 or 5 mons, just swapping out some of that 6 slot here, like Jungso here. Instead, like, again, opting for Flutter Mane, which is exactly the same 6 that we saw down here from Francisco, right? Which, again, still makes sense. But, you know, look for Landorus to come into play a little bit more, right? Because, again, of the Raging Bolt stuff. You know, Roaring Moon is a good mod, but, you know, you just have to position it properly as well. Look, again, how many P2s we're running around here? Quite a bit. Dondozo is still going to be a threat, right? So just be on your toes for that. The Archelodon Rain teams can still do something. They're probably just going to add Chien-Pao Urshifu to them. And, you know, just restructure the build a little bit that they use in Reg H. But all in all, yeah, I just want to say one other thing. Like, let me look at this team real quick. I just want to say Landorus, the Therian Landorus, is quite good with Flutter Mane, by the way. They have great synergy together, believe it or not, because if you think about what threatens them, each other can kind of cover. Because first of all, you do get Intimidate support with the Lando, which, again, Flutter Mane's physical defense isn't all that great. You know, you think about, you know, Urshifu and Chien-Pao threatening the Landorus here. Flutter Mane can pressure both of those because you have Terra Fairy Moonblast, right? And then stuff like, you know, the fire types that want to threaten the Flutter Mane, the Landorus can, you know, pressure them as well, you know, with their ground coverage here. So, you know, and even like the steels, right? The steel types, again, Landorus is also pretty good for that. So, like, ironically, these two have pretty good synergy altogether. But yeah, that's it. So if you're trying to team build in Regulation F and you need some help, make sure you check out coaching on the channel. If you look in the video description below, as well as in the pinned comment section, we do have a link to join the channel with the tier 3 sub. We can help you build a team from scratch the way you want it. So if you are not really sure where to go with your squads, or just have no idea how to start, sign up, ask us for help, and we will get you started. All right, look in the links below and then click the link, join the channel, and then message us on Discord when you've officially used that tier 3 sub. And if you want a little bit more, right, if you want a little bit of help with the battling along with the team building, that's going to be the tier 4 sub. So take a look at that if that is something that's interested you, right, where you can send us showdown replays and we can help optimize your gameplay a little bit better with the tier 4 sub, if that is a little bit more intriguing to you. All right, but that's it for now, folks. We'll be back with another video in the next one. Peace out and have a good one.